You.
Hello, gift the Denise.
Oh, good to see you. I just I just had this sweet, sweet experience receiving some just a direct wave of love from sweet brother Mike there. Oh, Richard, good to see you.
Good to see you, Richard.
Yes, you get to see your buddy Janie here. So, ah, that was just so precious. So, so precious. You know that as we continue our process of ascension, we are going to feel that's when we connect with other people. We're going to just feel waves of love, and it's just going to wash over us and remind us that we're all one, we're all connected. Love is all there is. Um, and we really have to train our mind to think correctly so that we are thinking uh, like God thinks. And that's the only thing that's going to bring about peace on earth is when we all remember who we are as God created us, because that is our authentic birthright. That is who we are, what we are. And we've just been under amnesia. And under amnesia, we forgot the truth and we started feeding on the lies. And the lies have created um, not necessarily our personalities. I believe our soul has a personality, and it truly is the personality of a playful child, in a state of wonder. But we have created identities that are based on the programming. And today we are doing, I think this is episode 203, and we completed last week. Let's see, where was that? Last week we completed a section. Oh, you know what? I didn't keep my little tab in there. So here I found it. We completed a section in chapter 3. Let me let our sweet sister in. And we completed a section inside of chapter 3, which was the innocent perception, creating versus self-image. And in those episodes, which went from 197 to 202, we just really focused on we have one identity as God created us, and then we have our self-perception. The self-perception is what the ego has made. That is when our self-image. And that's how we imagine ourselves based on what mommy and daddy and government and media and preacher and teacher thought of us. When we agreed that their opinions were more important than operating from the truth of who we are, we bought into an identity based on their perception. And they had a perception of themselves and created identities about themselves based on what their mothers and fathers and teachers and preachers and government and media thought of them. So we have been generationally handing down perceptions, and every perception of those who rear the children, their perceptions are based on who they were as children from what their parents thought of them. So, a child who grows up with parents who have low self esteem, who are fighting, who are abusive to one another, in whatever way that they're abusive. And so many of the clients that I coach had parents who father typically that's primarily the abuser, and mother was typically the victim. They played out a dynamic of a bully and victim, and the child learned that. If you're a girl, you kind of sided with mom. If you're a boy, you kind of sided with dad because they reflected a general image based on your gender of who you were. Now, that's one side, but then the opposite gets created. So the girl who grows up watching her mother being abused by dad, that girl makes a decision. I will never let that happen to me. So then she becomes the abuser. She becomes the intolerant one. She becomes maybe the passive aggressive or flat out aggressive person to make up for what she feels she needs to do to protect herself, but she still operates from that victim mentality. The boy who grew up watching the abusive father grows up in that mentality of, well, I'm a victim of my dad's, but because I'm the man, I'm still going to be abusing because that's what I was taught to do. So these patterns are so ingrained. And ego is always going to be victim and bully. There are no two other forms of operating. Now, there are people who grew up with very loving parents and they pick up most of their programming from the church, from you're a sinner, you're not good enough, from the school, you're not smart enough, you didn't do your job right enough, you're a screw up, whatever it might be. So every single person that I have worked with, and I focus my sharing my experiences based on what I know to be facts for me. And in my field, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. Even if the home experience is relatively good, there is still a perception that seeps in about our self-image. You could be watching a TV show, you could have read a book, you could have heard it from your neighbor, you could have spent time at an aunt or uncle's. So not everything is going to be traced directly to mom and dad as far as your trauma, but it will be traced to a starting point. That is why when we were in that section for a while ago, that section, which again is in chapter 3 called the innocent perception, the section that we reviewed was section number 7. Number 7's title is Creating versus Self-Image. The first sentence in the first paragraph states this: every thought system must have a starting point. Nobody is going to heal until we get to the starting point. We have to separate that which is truth from that which is accepted as our truth based on our perception of our mothers or fathers or teachers or preachers. And a child's perception of mother, father, teacher, preacher is always that of an immature child, thinking because I'm little and they're big, because I'm the child and they get to spank me, because I am only 3 years old and I can't feed myself and I can't have get my own house, I must follow what they are telling me. And if the child does not grow up to have a sense of self-esteem that is honoring the truth of who we are, as I am, I'm telling you, I know when I felt the call to come and live with my daughter in Colorado, leave my life in Atlanta behind and move to Colorado so I could be close to my grandchildren, I knew it was part of my a soul contract. I had to do it, even though I didn't want to live in Colorado. This is not the weather that I prefer. It's not even the scenery that makes my heart sing. I'm a water girl, a beach girl, and let me say warm water girl. They have a lake here. I can sit in front of that lake all day long, but it does not move me the way that being in the warmer climates does. So coming here, I knew it's because I was here to sit at the feet of my next gurus. And these two babies are my gurus. They came in already with a sense of knowing of who they are. I am just witnessing the truth of who we are, just blossoming before me. And at the same time, watching the programming that these kids are receiving from their parents. For me, my daughter grew up for the most part with an unconscious mother. And I began to change and shift when she was around 12 years old. She's 37 now, 36. She probably would say, "Whoa, don't age me, mom," but at 36. And she'll be 37 in a few months. So let me not fast forward her too much. But I'm watching her. She picked up, even after 12, she picked up how I was parenting her younger brothers. And so many of the things that I did with her brothers that I didn't do with her, I'm hearing come out of her mouth with her children. So I'm watching her continuing to remind them of how perfect they are while at the same time instilling directions, guidelines that assist them in being able to get to adulthood in a safe way. She doesn't squash their ideas. She will be very clear about, no, we're not going to do that. Not because you don't deserve our doing that, but because mommy doesn't feel like it right now, or mommy doesn't have time right now. She puts it back on her. So these kids are not growing up thinking that there's something wrong with them, that they're not loved because mommy, daddy are not doing something or not giving in for something. She gives them an explanation that brings it back to her. And it's so beautiful to see because those children are not taking on this self-image that they're less than, that they're insignificant, that their voice doesn't matter, that they're being overridden by mommy and daddy. And that is so important. That is why we must, as it says here, every system of thought must have a starting point. And just as God's system of thought has a starting point, the ego system of thought also has a starting point. And what I want you to really receive is that God's starting point was always there before your ego starting point. So let that sink in. If we use the chart of the spiral, the energy that we are, all encompassing, that descends and spirals down into a small idea of who we are, this is our ego, a very small, narrow perception of who we are after God set us in motion, after God had the thought of every single one of us. And then through the spiral of time, through the process of incarnation, we descended incarnation after incarnation after incarnation into the lower points of consciousness. We have to get to the starting point of God's idea about us. And we were created because God loved us. God wanted us to be to come into reality, capital R reality, because God is pure imagination. It imagines everything, allows everything to exist. God is like this giant mind, infinite mind of possibilities, and everything gets created there inside of the frequency of love. And we can, but safely in the mind of God, we can imagine ourselves as other than what we are. We have that ability. That is what is going to save us. The recognition that we can imagine, we can have a self image, but it is not what we are. It is a perception that is mirrored back to us by those that we believe know better than we do. And humanity is waking up to the realization. That is one of my favorite parts about the pandemic. And I call it pandemic because it was planned. If you take the time to study what happened with that, it had been years in the making. And what do you call it? A pandemic that was going to happen, and it was going to force people basically to give up their power, to give in their power and believe that they are less than who they are, and they must listen to the doctors and do what the doctors tell you. And it doesn't matter to me if people think that, how can you be bringing in conspiracy in Course in Miracles? Because the Course is very clear. When we make up stories, and it tells you, there's a lesson that's very clear. I am under no laws but God's. That the medical system, the political system, the education system, it tells you right there, was made up. It has a starting point. And when people rise to positions of power that are greedy and think about themselves, so they're selfish and greedy, it's all about the money. We have to understand that when we descend to these lower frequencies, everything is about what we value the most. And what the ego values the most is that which makes it feel like it has a sense of worth. And we have been conditioned that self-worth and net worth go together. So we have to unravel. No, my grandbabies, they did not come out of the womb. One of them that I delivered, because my daughter had a home birth and the midwife couldn't get here in time because we were in the middle of a blizzard. So I had to be, I was the one there. I had the privilege of being there to receive this gift directly from God, this child that was born pure perfection. I was the first hands that held that baby while my son-in-law was on the phone with the midwife telling me what to do. It was just a miracle, just an absolute miracle having that experience. Pure perfection was laying in my hands. That child was vibrating at the highest of frequencies. No judgment, no fear, no anger, no resentments, no revenge. None of that was there. Pure love. What I felt from you, Brother Mike, when you spoke to me right before we started the recording, that pure love is the truth of who we are. That was there first and is there from the beginning. Then we begin the process of descending. We begin to believe that there's something wrong with us, that we're not good enough, and little by little by little, we shrink into a bundle of insecurities. And then we have to unravel ourselves out of that. Now, this morning, as I was sitting with guidance, okay, what are we going to do today since we completed that chapter? Here's what I was told. We're going to go into chapter 23. The title of chapter 23 is The War Against Yourself. It is so important that we understand that we are truly, every one of us is in a war with ourselves, meaning the perfection of who we are is always there in the background. But the self-image that we create is always battling with our perfection because the self-image came after our perfection. And it thinks, which is the ego, that I am right about what's wrong with me. It believes that because I got abused as a child, I got, parents got divorced and my life changed drastically and I had to go live, with some wicked stepmom or some, other stepfather or whatever. I got moved, maybe parents stayed married, but I moved away from grandma, or I had to parent, dad, mom lost their job and I had to go down into a smaller house in a less expensive neighborhood. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Your perfection was established from the get-go, but then we begin to take on these experiences, and the ego in its very immature mind begins to use it. Well, I have to protect myself. So I'm going to create a mask. If dad is I grew up with an alcoholic father. He would, when he was drunk, we were taught to tiptoe around him. Do not wake your father, or he will be mad and angry. So I put on the mask of quiet little girl, withhold my voice. I won't say anything because I don't want to make dad angry. Well, what do you think that mask did to me? Well, I'll withhold my voice from the boys that I'm dating because I don't want to make them mad at me. And my entire life, I'm not going to tell the boss what I really think because I don't want to make him mad at me. So we grow up with this identity, this self-image that is totally not what God created us to be. I watch these little kids, they have no fear to be themselves because their parents do not punish them, do not tell them, stop talking or yell at them like I experienced that because we're being too loud or you're being too this or hurry up, you're not fast enough. I watch my daughter patiently when my grandson is, as all children do, I rather play than get ready for school. Gently, she reminds them, but you enjoy school. It's so much fun. Sometimes they're late for school, and my daughter doesn't make it an issue because she doesn't want her grandson. Maybe she just has heard me talk about so many clients that are traumatized in childhood. She's been listening. She doesn't want to do that to her kids. So these kids have a very healthy sense of what the Course tells us. They believe that they're entitled to miracles. And it's not a selfish entitlement, it's a natural entitlement that is born in us because we know that we are entitled to having what we desire inside of a safe, loving environment that is providing guidelines. that is bringing them examples of, okay, you're entitled to miracles here, buddy, but when you grow up, you may have a boss. When you have a job, you may have a boss that doesn't think that. So you've got to learn how to negotiate. You got to learn how to use your voice, communicate, collaborate. So they're learning healthy uses of their voice while they're not being indoctrinated into giving it up. It's a very fine line to walk as a conscious parent. And I get to watch that. So this morning, as I'm sitting in my time listening to Source, okay, what are we going to talk about? I was told we're going to go to chapter 23 for two reasons. Chapter 23, the title is The War Against Yourself. Now, today we're going to focus in a section number 4. The title of it is Above the Battleground. So if you're following along, we're in chapter 23, The War Against Yourself. We're going to focus on section number 4, Above the Battleground. The reason this is so important is because right now, and let me preface this, everything is a projection, as within, so without. So everything we have to really get is a mirror of ourselves. So when we look at the war against yourself, it matches the wars that are going on outside of ourselves. When we learn, to me, mastery is about understanding. We create our reality, and our reality is always a projection of who we are. If this doesn't resonate with you, then you've got some work to do to train your mind to get to the point that you get that. But you'll still receive lots of nuggets if you just listen to this message with an open mind. And an open mind is a characteristic of a teacher of God. Anybody who starts judging, who starts shutting things down, oh, this is wrong, this is not, whatever, is not at the level of spiritual maturity that is going to allow you to hear the deepest messages within everything that is shared, because the mind is being trained little by little to go through a process of ascension. Nobody goes from shame and guilt to joy and peace overnight. It does not happen. This is a journey of lifetimes. And in this lifetime, because we're receiving the support of the universe, we're receiving the amazing energies that are activating the potential for our awakening. Everything is accelerating for those who are paying attention and who are open-minded and willing. You have to be curious, otherwise you'll just go crazy with what's happening, because so much is happening in the world. But if you're feeling a sense of curiosity and you want to hear without, and you have trained your mind enough to tell your ego, wait a second, we're not going to judge, we want to listen, and then I will feel what resonates, keep that, and let go of what doesn't. That's a very mature way of looking at things. You're going to receive some amazing nuggets that are going to help you move through what is going to be taking place. I believe that we are in the last 5 to 7 years of a big shift. The big shift is we're shifting from the third dimensional world where everything moved very slowly. So the work that we had to do took lifetimes, and in this lifetime, decades. And we have shifted to an acceleration to prepare people for ascension. What ascension means is that we're not operating from the lower chakras where everything is protecting my self-image. It's all about taking care of me, which is what the ego is, very selfish, service to myself, doesn't matter who I hurt. To ascend, to look at the world through the eyes of God. So we are moving. We have to do the work at the heart level to purify our emotional childhood traumas so that we can return ourselves to being a loving being. We cannot love others while we are a hurt person, because hurt people hurt others, whether we intentionally, deliberately say, oh, I'm going to hurt my children when I have them. I didn't say that, but boy, did I hurt them, because I was training them to obey me, meaning idolize me, give their power to me, to obey the church, to obey the teachers, to obey the government. I was training them. Your power is out, power is outside of you. That's very unloving because love says power is within you. And we recognize that in another when we feel empowered in ourselves. But hurt people cannot do anything but hurt others because it is a mirror projection. They're projecting out there what's inside of them. So when we understand that what's outside reflects what's inside, we are on the home stretch. And the home stretch of this journey is to recognize that you can change the outside by shifting how you perceive on the inside. So in this section, we have to go to above the battleground because we have to understand not only how powerful we are, but that our power is what is going to help heal the world. Because when we activate that love that is unconditional within, others are going to feel it, just as I felt yours, Brother Mike. You're going to feel it. And when you feel that level of love, there's no room for self-image. You know you are the presence of love, the presence of God itself, because you're in the presence of love flowing to you. You're in the presence of another being who is God as well. From that place, there will be no wars, no jealousy, no anger, no lying, no cheating. That will go away. But we first have to stop lying to ourselves that we're not as God created us and stop cheating, cheating with our egos and listening to the voice of the ego and having an affair with our ego and not listening to the voice of God that is attempting to take us to that fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is a consciousness in ourselves. It is a rise in dimension from immature, scared little child operating based on what you learned as a child to rise above that. Do the work of healing. You're not a wounded child unless of course you like the experience of being a victim. If you like that experience, I promise you're going to do everything in your power to avoid ever looking at it so that you can remain in that space. And every person who operates as a bully has a victim within. And I don't care what age you are. We see a lot of people on the world stage that they're in, 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s or more, who act like brats. And they act like brats because their 6, 7, 8-year old that is scared and maybe has a little bit of power is ready to go to war and shoot somebody down because they don't care about the happiness of anybody else. They only care about protecting what they believe is provides them their safety and their worth, which is always going to be power and money. And doesn't matter what level of power or money, that is what the ego does. So above the battleground is an important section. So let's dive into it. Do not remain in conflict. I'm in paragraph 1 in sentence 1. Do not remain in conflict, for there is no war without attack. When we are in conflict, we are not acknowledging the voice of God within us. Conflict is the egoic way of maintaining confusion in our mind. Oh, I want to be happy, but I can't be happy again. I'll never find love again because, the last 3 spouses that I just divorced, they were mean and they were with me for my money or they were abusive or whatever. They cheated on me. So there's no way I'll ever find love. But I really want to be happy. And who's saying that? Your soul. I really want to be happy. I'm okay. Why? Because the soul is like a creative child in a state of wonder. I'll be able to find love again. There is a knowingness that love is what we deserve. And then the self-image, the intellectualized egoic mind says, well, but I have evidence that the last 3 relationships, whether they were spouses or not, it doesn't matter, were mean and hurtful and I couldn't be myself, so I'll never have another relationship. So what does the ego do? It blocks us and it keeps us in states of confusion. You want to be happy, but you're going to avoid anything that puts you in contact with anybody that could possibly create excuse me, a happy relationship. And the reason the ego does that is because it wants to avoid conflict out there with somebody else, but it keeps you in conflict inside. And while you're in conflict, every person you meet, you're going to be justified in attacking them. Oh, oh, they look like that first person that I dated, or oh, their voice reminds me of that mean, friend that I had in high school. Or you'll come up with reasons why they're a problem, which is an attack. It's a judgment. It's a projection. There's something wrong with you because I don't want to look at what's wrong with me. Because as long as I can say it's everybody else, I don't have to look within. And as long as I don't look within, I'm never going to find the starting point of that thought system because I'm never going to go far enough to look at maybe I'm the common denominator in all of these failed relationships. Because if you go back to look at why you are the source of the problem, not to beat yourself up, but to free yourself, to look at the problem, to face the problem, which is what the spiritual journey is about. We're going to face the problem that I have inside of me, the issues, the trauma, the places where I felt wounded. We're going to face it and we're going to turn it into an opportunity to learn. That is what most people will not do. Everybody wants, love and light and unicorns and make things better. And I want to have a happy life. But few, and the course tells you that. In the manual for teachers, it tells you few are going to really do the work that is necessary to come back to the beginning and discover who you really are as God created you. And for that, you have to face your own dark self. You have to face the you that has convinced you that the problem is not you, it's everybody else. Because facing that part of you is to face the lie that you have bought into and have been defending as if that was the truth. So we have to understand that we have to move above the battleground. Above the battleground is to become mature enough to look at things objectively. Why do I want happiness, but I keep avoiding every opportunity for it? Why do I do that? Then you've got to look at where are your fears about, a happy relationship? Where are what are the beliefs that you picked up from mom and dad that have you not be a good partner? Why do you lie to your partner? Why do you cheat on your partner? Why do you hold your voice around your partner? Why do you not speak up and say what you want? What are the fears that keep you from doing that? The layers and layers and layers of things that we have to look at are so many. So it is a daunting process, but it's a process that has to be done because you got to look at all the ways that you drop down. And to see how you drop down in frequency, you must face every frequency and look at what it represents until you rise above the battleground. But interestingly enough, all that it requires, and the course tells you this, is a little willingness, just a little willingness to be open-minded. And right now, we have wars going outside to highlight the internal wars that people have been avoiding. All the people shopping, all the people drugging, all the people sexing, all the people, going to the concerts and paying a ton of money to be distracted or going to Super Bowl for 3, 4 hours of distraction. All of those people are in for a very rude awakening because humanity is about to move into a very dark night of the soul, which means we are going to see how we are going to be so disappointed by our idols in big ways. It's happening in the movie industry, it's happening in the music industry, it's happening in all of the industries where we have placed idols above us. And when they disappoint us, especially in the big arenas of presidents and ayatollahs and kings and queens, when we have these massive exposures of the corruption based on the egoic greed of power and money, when those things begin to topple, we are going to say, who's going to keep me safe? And that, when you start asking the question, who's going to keep me safe? Oh, they're going to take me to war. They're going to put me in danger. When you start asking that question, then you're going to be ready to see that you gave your power away. Not to blame yourself, because that's what we do on a 3D world. We give our power away. Why? Because we were trained as babies to give it away. We always thought mother, father knows best. So this is a journey of coming back to the beginning. Where did that thought system start? And begin to ask the question that is so crucial. Who am I? And in the asking, who am I? You're going to have to face the fear of God, the fear of this wrathful God that in the Old Testament spoke of turning people into pillars of salt and requested the sacrifice of a newborn son and send people to in these endless wars and killing others. We're going to have to face this God that we have been indoctrinated with and go to the beginning of that thought system. Where did that God that is fearful and wrathful, where did it come from? Every religion has a starting point because God did not create religion. To come to know God, you must go beyond the starting point of that religion, which is what my mom's death, thankfully, I say she gave birth to me twice, once physically and once spiritually, because when I began to face my fears of death and going to hell, as you know, every good Catholic knows is going to happen, and I wasn't a good Catholic, but I grew up Catholic, then I had to see where I was taught about fearing hell. And when I'm afraid of hell, I'm not operating in a loving way. So I had to come to know the God of love. I had to leave the God that I had been taught about to come to know the God that was there from the beginning, a thought system that is beyond thought. It's a knowingness that was there from the beginning. In my encounter with God in 2007, Mike, I felt the same thing as I felt with you. It's an unconditional love that wipes away the notion that there could be anything but love as the essence of who we are. Because when you discover God, the real God, that conveniently those in positions of power don't want you to know, because if you knew the God that you are, an expression of that love that you are, you would not give your power to idols. You would not idolize those in front of you. You would recognize that the truth of that God is within you. That is why Jesus was put to death, not because he was going around teaching, the truth that God is love. You got to love your neighbor as yourself. But he was upsetting those that had been idolized, the bosses, the heads of the Roman Church and the Jewish establishment. They didn't like being inconvenienced by Jesus telling the truth. But Jesus was simply saying, these people have taught you that there's 600, 800, I forget how many laws, God's laws that are all, in the Jewish establishment, the Jewish religion that was established after, not in the beginning, but at some point later on. You don't need 6, 800 laws. You only need two. And it's really only one. But Jesus was realize, these people are under a trance. So let me just break it down into two. Two sounds better than one for people who are used to 600 or more. And he said, love your neighbor as yourself. And you can only love your neighbor as yourself because you have learned to love God. And you can only love God when you come within and experience the kingdom of heaven that's within. And to do that, you must go above the battleground. You must look at things from a different perspective. You have to become open-minded and question, is there more here? Who's telling me the truth here? But out of fear, we listen to those who tell us, well, if you don't believe this, you're going to die. You're going to go to hell if you don't come and confess your sins and let me give you kind of a pass out of that. And by the way, if you pay me 10% or more, then we'll really wipe clean the slate. So there's so much mental training that has to take place because we've experienced so much mental fuckery with us. We have been told so many things that are not true, and we bought into them. So there is a lot of cleaning up that has to happen. So do not remain in conflict. Do the work that you need to do. For there is no war without attack. Everybody who is feeling scared is going to attack, period. It doesn't matter if you attack aggressively or passive aggressively, you're going to attack because in your mind, you're saying, I'm scared. And you will do whatever it takes to protect yourself because the ego is protecting a body. The fear of death has us totally, completely confused about the power that is within us, but we only tap into that power when we accept that we're eternal, which means you cannot have an allegiance with the body as your identity. You must learn to use the body as a vehicle that your soul is traveling in this lifetime with, and be ready to drop that vehicle. It's okay because you have to cultivate a relationship with that which is eternal inside of you. What is eternal inside of you, you cannot know until you move above the battleground. Watch what's going on inside of you. Watch the conflict. Watch the things that you say to others. You say you love them, but then you put them down. You say you're a spiritual person, but then you're sitting in front of the TV judging the candidate you don't like, or judging your friends who are voting for candidates that you don't like. So much has come into the surface over the last 5, 10 years. The pandemic, it was so easy to see people who were for the shots and those who weren't. And so many in my spiritual community were for the shots, and they absolutely judged the ones who didn't take it. That's not love. Especially if you're under no laws of God's, you know that there is nothing outside of you that can heal you. There isn't. The mind has been trained into believing that, but true healing comes from inside, but first from a healed mind. So, second sentence, the fear of God is fear of life and not of death. This is why we have to unpack the lies that God equals death. God sent so many people. You've got to sacrifice your firstborn child. The Old Testament is filled with commandments from God to kill the bad people. God doesn't kill. The real God doesn't kill anybody because there is no death. So why would that God tell us to go around killing people, making us fear death and worry about death when there is no death? You have to logically recognize that there is conflict in there. What is above the battleground? Do not remain in conflict. Know the truth. If God is a loving God, it does not require death. It does not require punishment. Those things had to have been made up. So what did we learn in the previous lessons? Go to the beginning of that thought system. When did that thought system get created? Who created it? Every thought system, you're going to find out, if you go far enough, they were created by two establishments, government and the church, all deliberately to control people. Because if people can be kept ignorant of the truth of who they are, the power that resides within them, which is why they put Jesus to death. He was going around telling people, hey, the kingdom of heaven is inside. It's not over there. It's in you. That's very inconvenient to the establishment. If you think about it logically, why would a man be put to death for telling people to love each other? Makes no sense, does it? But love each other came after you love God. And if you love God, you're going to find out that there's nothing to fear about God. And with religions that are using the fear of God to keep people ignorant and controllable, and in a way of it's mental enslavement, it makes it very inconvenient to have somebody going around telling people to love each other, because it leads to knowing that you are love. And if it leads to knowing that you are love, you're not going to want to join the army of a government that tells you go kill your neighbor. So you've got to clear up all of that confusion in your mind. The conflicts have to end. We cannot have peace on earth while we continue to believe in war. That is a conflict. We must go above the battleground and look at this and go, this is nonsensical. But we can't come to the place, look where reason is. Way up there. Reason means you've got to use the logic, the reason that God has given you. When you go into God reasoning such a high frequency, you can begin to see the truth. We've been taught to use logic to protect yourself. You need an army so that they will attack the people so they won't come and attack you. That is egoic logic that is nonsense. How does attacking lead to peace? It does not. It leads to a temporary sense of peace because you got rid of the enemy. But guess what? That enemy that you got rid of, they had sons and daughters, and they were trained into hating the opposition. So guess what? You might have attacked their daddies, but the sons are going to grow up and go into the military, or the daughters will, and this will continue forever. You know what Einstein called that? Doing the same thing, expecting different results, insanity. Course in Miracles tells us that the ego is a tiny mad idea. It's an insane way of thinking. We will never eradicate the wars in the world while we continue to project that battles are okay. And we only project that battles are okay because we're conflicted on the inside. We got to come and take care of the battle within. That is what the Course in Miracles is helping us do. Come inside, get rid of the conflict. If you want love, be love. If you want peace, be the presence of peace. Be the change you want to see in the world. That's why, I started the Awareness Academy. I want people to really receive the teachings of the Course and really understand and apply them. Because when you apply them, you receive the truth that sets you free. And speaking of the academy, there is in the curiosity stage, which is free. There's no charge to be part of that. And I do Course in Miracles basic class. I did it Monday. Nobody happened to show up to the class. So I did the whole class, and one of my sweet other members called me and said, I'm watching the video, but there's no sound. Well, because I had nobody there, I didn't realize I was on mute. So I was talking, but there was nobody there to say, Line, I can't hear you. So I'll repeat that class because it was such an important class that addresses some of these things. And that's free. That I want everybody to have access to the Course in Miracles. So then it goes on to say in sentence number 3, speaking about God, yet he remains the only place of safety. In him is no attack and no illusion in any form stalks heaven. I think that's missing a word. In any form that stalks heaven is, I'm going to add that in there. So in him is no attack and no illusion in any form that stalks heaven. Heaven is being under attack. When we are told that heaven is a place you go to, it is under attack. Heaven is not a place you go to. Heaven is a state of mind, a state of being for those who have found the safety of God within. When you find God inside of you, there is nothing that you will fear on the outside. You have the power of creation within you. Like we were talking in class last night, healing and raising the dead will be natural because you will have access the power of God within you, and you will be using that power, recognizing that you and God are one. But this only happens with humility. This only happens when we're willing to fall on our knees and recognize how wrong we have been, that we needed tanks to keep it safe. So to have the tanks, I'm in that boat. We voted for people who were warmongers. We voted for people who are in positions of power. We gave them positions of power, and they sit on boards of companies that produce tanks and bombs. So it's not their fault if we vote them in. So there's a lot of atoning that has to happen. We've got to come back in and take responsibility for that. The wars out there are a reflection of the wars inside. If we don't clear up the conflict in here, we will be happy to vote for anybody who promises us peace. Generation after generation after generation. My dad served in the military. He was in the Korean War. And I received his flag after he died and his medals. And I sat with that. I wasn't quite yet awakening, but I sat with that, and I was like so proud of my dad who fought and had all these beautiful medals. And then I started my awakening process, and I opened the box one day in one of my many moves, and I saw the flag and I went, oh my gosh, my dad was indoctrinated into going to fight for wars that didn't end. When he fought, shouldn't have that ended all the wars? No, but there's been so many after that. And the sons and daughters of friends of mine who have perished in these wars. Doesn't logic, reason, we got to move up above the battleground and really activate reason that says, why do we keep having these wars expecting a different result? But the different results will never show up out there if they don't start in here. Because when they start in here and we take responsibility, we will not continue to do the same thing, voting for the same parties and the same nonsense and expect a different result. When we stop the madness inside, the madness outside will stop. And we are in a time of ascension, which is an acceleration of the possibility for those who have a little willingness to come inside and take responsibility. We are beings of love and light. We are beings that care and love one another. The truth of who we are is that we have a voice. We have been given a throat chakra to communicate from a place of a high frequency that notices, recognizes the love, the God, the essence of perfection in another. When we see that, we cannot attack them because we're not conflicted. We're seeing the truth of who they are. And if they're doing things that are not kind, we will remind them, brother, sister, you are the presence of love. You really are the essence of goodness itself. Why are you doing this unloving thing? Instead of judging them, we will remind them of who they really are. But you can't remind another if you're not being that. Otherwise, they'll look at you and go, who are you to tell me? Well, that's why Jesus was put to death. He was reminding people of the truth, and that was very inconvenient. But he didn't mind being crucified. He was willing to die for truth. And we are being asked, are you willing to die for the truth? Or are you going to coward and say what needs to be said to not upset the apple cart and not be, put in front of the firing squad? So we've got to find that inner power that many of us felt when we were witches and warlocks and were burnt at the stake because we spoke the truth, or maybe we were Essenes in a past life where we spoke the truth and we were put to death. We've got to get over this fear of death and recognize the power of the voice that we have when we're not conflicted and we know the truth of who we are. So what if we lose the bodies in this lifetime? We are at a time where we have to stand for the truth, or we're going to fall for anything that is given to us that is false. So let's go to the next sentence. Heaven is wholly true. So to read those last couple of sentences, the fear of God is fear of life and not of death, and he remains the only place of safety. In him is no attack and no illusion in any form stalks heaven. Well, that makes sense now. Stalks heaven. Heaven is wholly true. Heaven is the state of consciousness that exists inside of us that my babies were born with. They were born at that high frequency, and it is our jobs as parents, conscious grandparents, conscious aunts and uncles, to hold the truth about who they are and not think that, oh, these are immature little kids. We gotta, teach them the ways of the world and teach them about fear and idols. That is the third dimensional thinking that pulls everything down. The higher frequency is one who recognizes the perfection of every child of God. And you do everything you can to let them be there so that they can take us further up. They are so much closer to the truth. Listening to a child is like listening to God. When your mind has been so conditioned to believe that heaven is outside of you, these little ones know heaven is inside of them. And you know how they know that? Because it feels good to be happy. For them, that's what they want. They want the joy, the fun. We've been trained that we got to wait till Friday to be happy. We got to wait till we retire to be happy and have fun. What nonsense we have been conditioned with. How conflicting is that in our minds, in our bodies that age so soon, that get sick so fast because we're waiting until Friday for the paycheck so that we can afford to buy something. And if we don't have the money, we'll get a credit card, so we'll go in debt, and then we got to keep working so that then there's a paycheck to pay the credit card and go have some fun on Friday. The insanity of what we have bought into, expecting different results, is mind-boggling. And I was right there with everybody else. I fell for that hook, line, and sinker because I was so insecure as a little child. I was so afraid of being, abandoned. It's amazing the unraveling that has to happen, but happen it must. Let me go on to the next sentence. No difference enters, and what is all the same cannot conflict. If heaven is wholly true, there is no hell. There can be no hell, for no difference enters, and what is all the same, which God created, cannot have conflict. You are not asked to fight against your wish to murder, but you are asked to realize the form it takes conceals the same intent. The Course in Miracles does not give you the commandment, don't go kill people. It doesn't. It doesn't waste its time telling us don't. Course in Miracles spends all of its time reminding you of your perfection. In your perfection, you would not do anything that is unloving. You have to contract yourself, think such dark thoughts to do something like that. Course in Miracles is reminding you, you are the light of the world. There is no lesson that says you're not a murderer. The lessons are that you are the light. You are the eternal light. Find that inside. Connect with that. Own that. Live from that as your truth. In the introduction, the Course tells you, do not attempt to interpret the Course. You accept what you can at any given point, but do not attempt to interpret the Course. You must take it word for what it is saying. If you are the light of the world, be the light. You will feel the difference in your life if you start treating everybody lovingly, like a brother, like a sister in Christ. Your life will change if you decide to apply these things to the letter. But to do that, you've got to be open-minded because your ego is going to tell you, well, I'm not going to be loving to, the neighbor who was so mean to me. If you apply it, next time you see the neighbor, you say, you too are a son, a daughter of Christ. I'm going to see the goodness in you. I'm going to let go of being right about what you did to me. I'd rather have peace instead of being right. All of these teachings from the Course are so powerful, but you have to use them. And our ego convinces us not to do this because they did that. Conflict. And what does it tell us here? Do not remain in conflict. Every single section in the Course, the first line of every paragraph is so potent, but you have to trust it. So we're developing trust, another characteristic of a teacher of God, by honestly, another characteristic of a teacher of God, being open-minded, another characteristic of a teacher of God, and joyfully, another characteristic of the teacher of God, doing what this is telling you to do. Don't argue with it, because that's a sign of immaturity, arguing with ultimate truth, and just let yourself put these things into practice. You will find such incredible peace, peace that passes all understanding. You cannot understand how peaceful you're going to be when you do what the Course tells you. But you have to be willing to go above the battleground in your own mind. Stop thinking that you are right because you're wrong about so many things. We all are so wrong about so many things. We were raised in the third dimension of consciousness. That's like one of the areas in the amusement park that you can go play in. And in that frequency, it's low. It's like the haunted house. I've used this analogy 100 times. Time to use it again. The haunted house in the amusement park, think of the amusement park as planet Earth. We went to the haunted house. We've been playing there. That's the third dimension. And we've been scared because of all the things that are in there. Well, turn the light on. You'll see it's all made up. That's what the third dimension is, all made up. We made up that power's outside of us. We made up that money has, it's more important than happiness and love and peace. It's all made up. Turn the lights on. Then go ride on the love canal. Go enjoy the ride. Fifth dimension, we're going to move to a world that is going to operate in so much joy because we're going to be recognizing the truth of who we are, brothers and sisters, doing the best that we can with what we got, and we're going to collaborate and cooperate. All of us enjoy that are of a frequency of awakening. We enjoy people that we can have conversations with, that we learn from them. It's not like we're going to know everything in the fifth dimension. We're not. We're still going to have a limited understanding of everything. So we will need one another to support. We're going to need the person who knows all about plants to assist us when we get sick. We're going to need plant medicine. We're going to need the people who want to open up a grocery store so we can go there and get foods that are organic. We're going to need the people who want to serve in government because they're going to be true servant leaders. So we're going to need one another, but we'll be able to collaborate because we won't be afraid to use our voices. So we must get to the place that, stop concealing the truth that is true always. Get comfortable looking at the truth. You're not asked to fight against your wish to murder, but you are asked to realize the form it takes conceals the same intent. If you are believing that somebody deserves to be killed, that the war is okay, and let's drop some bombs on these bad people, if you believe, which is very different than dropping the bombs on the places where they make those whatever you call it, bombs, maybe nuclear, whatever. So there's a difference when we are deliberately killing innocent people versus let's get rid of the things that are not helpful, that are poisonous. We have to take the steps. The Course in Miracles doesn't tell us don't take action. It says take action from a place of understanding what needs to be done to help humanity move out of this dense illusion that we're inside of. With the love of God in your heart, you may be led to do things that for a little while are going to appear destructive, but what we're doing is utilizing the might and the power that we have outside of us, and maybe in the form of a military, to get rid of the things, to use the idea that we're strong because we have this force behind us for a little while until we realize that that's not necessary. But going from killing one another to destroying the things that kill each other to not having to do any of that, we have to go through steps. It takes specific steps to move out of the density. One of them is pride. Some people who are in positions of leadership have to have a lot of pride, soul pride, not ego pride. Ego pride is I'm in charge and I'll kill whoever I want to kill. But soul pride is I'm going to do whatever needs to be done for the greater good of all. We are moving very slowly because it takes time to undo what was built over time. We're moving very slowly through a process of creating the necessary steps to get humanity to the point that when we're not spending all that money on war and we're spending all that money to clean the air, to clean the water, to clean the soil, and so we can become healthy again, so that in our health we can think clearly again, so that we can have an education system, because we're in a world of systems. In the third dimension, it's systems. We are not going to let go of the systems of the 3D world. We are going to create a happy dream where the systems in this world are to consciously enhance, to support who we are as God created us. That is the world that we're moving into. A world where we are going to first heal ourselves, clean ourselves, as within, so without. To do the healing inside, you got to do the healing of the water, or of the food, of the air. Those things have to happen. These teachings are a step by step how to heal yourself, how to heal the world. Because when we heal ourselves, the world that is going to be reflected back will be a healed world. This, to me, the course is like, what a beautiful love letter with an instruction manual of how to get back to the truth of who we are. And I am so grateful you guys come and listen to this. I swear. I mean, I don't think about any of what I'm going to say other than I am told, okay, what are we going to talk about? Where do I go in? What do I use in the course? And then the voice for God speaks through me. And it's just so beautiful. And I just love it that you guys are willing to come and watch. And if you watch this after it's been recorded, thank you for your participation. And again, join us in the academy and get active. Start talking and let's get the community built and supporting one another. The times ahead are going to be dark because everybody has to enter the dark night of the soul. And because it's still a relatively small number of people who have done that personal work, the collective, meaning humanity, billions of people are going to have to go through a big dark night to wake up. And it's coming because we have a benevolent creator who, even though it's going to appear that, wow, why such rough things for people to go through? Because most of us are very hard-headed. We need something rough to, 2x4 Mack truck to hit us over the head so that we can finally say, stop the insanity. So here we are. This was episode, I think I said 203. We'll see. We'll see when I look on YouTube what episode number this is. And I hope you come back and see us next week. These are always on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock Eastern time. And the rest of you that are in the academy, I'll see you there. And some I'll see you tonight because we got fun stuff going on. All right. Love you all so much. If anybody has anything you want to share, please unmute yourselves. Otherwise, we will meet again next time.
Just beautiful messages always, Laina.
Thank you, brother.
Listen to you.
Thank you. I hope you leave with a little bit more encouragement and some hope in your heart. It can be scary to realize how powerful we are, but it's not as scary as being a victim and operating as if this world is a battleground. We need to constantly be protecting and attacking and defending. That's scary. That is really scary. Um, Anyways, love you all. See you next week. Bye-bye.